And for those of you just joining us, my name is Gabby Medina. I am the Cultural Outreach Coordinator 1 with CESO Durango. CESO is an organization dedicated to providing advocacy and support to survivors of sexual violence. We do that in a number of ways, beginning with our 24-hour free and confidential hotline. And we provide advocacy through the forms of accompaniment during law enforcement reporting, during forensic nurse examinations, and during court processes. We also offer survivor support groups to members within our community, and we do education around the topics related to sexual violence. Today, we have the opportunity to share space with Dr. Eliseo or Cheo Torres. And this is an opportunity to learn more about the traditional healing practices of Curanderismo and the way in which it is used to combat stress and anxiety. Dr. Torres has served as Vice President for Student Affairs and was a full-time professor at the University of New Mexico since January 2nd, 1996. He recently moved to part-time, but he was responsible for all facets of student life, including programs such as El Centro de la Raza, African American and American Indian student services, the Women's Resource Center, the Student Union, student activities, the Student Health and Counseling Center, and career services. He teaches 3 classes on traditional medicine and regularly lectures and gives presentations on the history and lore of Curanderismo to audiences ranging from scholars and students of Latin American culture to people hoping to become knowledgeable about alternative and traditional medicine, including lay people and medical professionals alike. He has published 4 books in his life and has research in traditional medicine emphasizing medicinal plant and rituals published by the University of New Mexico Press and Kendall Hunt Publishing Company. At UNM, he has been a member of several faculty doctoral dissertation committees. He was involved with the Prince of Austria Endowed Chair for Science and Technology, funded by Iberdrola Power Company of Spain. And he supports the annual Mesquite Scholarship Golf Tournament that has generated about 1.5 million for student scholarships. Among other initiatives, Dr. Torres has been involved as an Institute for Mexicans Abroad, IME, as an advisor to Mexican presidents Vicente Fox and Felipe Calderon for improving lives of immigrants in the United States. And he has received the OHTLI Award from the Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Before he came to the University of New Mexico, Dr. Torres served as a Vice President for External Affairs at Texas A&M University in Kingsville, as well as teaching in the bilingual doctoral program. He has also served as Interim President and Vice President of Student Affairs. He has also served on the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce board and has been involved in a number of other boards and organizations. Thank you, Dr. Torres, for being here today. And with that, I'll turn this over to you.
Well, thank you, Gabby, for that wonderful introduction. And so nice to have my friends from Durango here on video, on Zoom. Some of you are here from Gabby, have come to the classes here at the University of New Mexico, especially the summer class, which is a face-to-face class. Unfortunately, because of Zoom, we weren't able to do it last summer or this past summer, and it was a Zoom class. I'm not sure if we had many people from Colorado, but we usually have a good group that come for the face-to-face class in the summer. I would like to introduce also my colleague who is en route to Monterrey, Mexico, Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico. Mario del Ángel Guevara, he supports many of my classes, all of my classes actually. And Mario has been able to teach these classes totally in Spanish. And we offer a Coursera course. I'll talk about those in a few minutes, the courses that we offer. Four free Coursera courses that you might be interested in. And I'll tell you more about it, and I'll give you the link. And Mario is preparing one or two of those courses totally in Spanish. So soon those courses will be offered in Spanish, thanks to Mario. Any comments, Mario, that you'd like to make? I think he's at the airport, right?
Wonderful introduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mario. Yeah. He's at the airport in Dallas on his transfer of the flight. Let me enlarge this PowerPoint to its full screen. Well, here we go. Let me go back to Curanderismo. Well, the title of this talk is Curanderismo, Traditional Medicine Approaches in the Hispanic World for Times of Stress and Anxiety. What we will try to do with this next hour or so is to tell you about some of the approaches that have been taken to deal with stress and anxiety. And we all are going through stress and anxiety during COVID. Of course, we don't have a cure for COVID. The best thing for COVID is to take the vaccine. And most of you, I hope all of you have gotten the vaccine, but we still go through stress. We go through anxiety. We lose loved ones. We get sick, or our family gets sick. And these are some ways that we might be able to cope during times of stress and anxiety. First of all, what is curanderismo? It comes from the word curar, which means to heal. Physicians curan, they heal, and so do curanderos. And it is a holistic approach to healing, mind, body, and spirit. And who is a curandero or a curandera? It is a traditional healer working in the material, spiritual, and mental levels tied to mind, body, and spirit. In earlier years, people would say that it's someone with a gift, a don. Well, even if you have the gift, you need the training to become a good curandero, a good healer, like any profession. Or there was an apprentice, and it still happens someone in the family or someone that was related, or just someone that had an interest with the apprentice under another curandero for a number of years. And now there are schools, especially in Mexico, of curanderismo, like the Centro de Desarrollo hacia la Comunidad, CEDEC. I got my certificate from the school in Mexico, and it's a wonderful school that was started about 20, 25 years ago, more or less. And it works with hundreds of healers from throughout Mexico, Central America, and South America. I think we should know a little history of curanderismo. In 1519, in the year 1519, the Spanish arrived in Mexico. And about 3 years later, in 1521, what is now Mexico City, Tenochtitlan, and 3,000 medicinal plants were destroyed, or the knowledge of these plants were destroyed by the Spaniards. However, and only a few years later, in 1552, a Native American or Aztec Indian doctor wrote the first book on traditional medicine, listing 251 herbs on medicinal plants at the famous School of Santa Cruz at Tlatelolco. This was only done 31 years after the conquest of Mexico. And then in just 2 years later, in 1554, the Spaniard Cervantes de Salazar described Montezuma II's garden, where physicians were experimenting with hundreds of medicinal plants. They were doing research during these times. Let's go back to Martín de la Cruz, the doctor, the Indian doctor who wrote this first medicinal journal. It's called Codex Badiano. And you may wonder, why do they call it Codex Badiano if Martín de la Cruz wrote it? Well, his scribe, or his assistant, Juan Badiano, translated this book from the native language of Nahuatl to not Spanish, but to Latin. Well, this book was lost. People didn't know where it was. They just knew that it existed. When the late Pope John Paul came to Mexico the first time, he brought this codex, this book with him, and gave it to the people of Mexico. And it was stored in the Vatican vaults all these years. And here's pages of this wonderful book. Not sure why. Okay. Gabby, you think you can change the slide? For some reason, it's not. Or Mario? Oh, here it is. There's a book. These are pages from the Codex Badiano. Aren't they beautiful drawings of plants? 251 of these plants are introduced in this book. And now, of course, it's found in Spanish, and you can find it at the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. Not sure why. There's some influences of Curanderismo. For example, a blend of Native American and Spanish roots. The Native Americans had a lot of knowledge, but also the Spaniards had a lot of knowledge, mostly because of the Moors that controlled Spain for some 700, 800 years. The Moors were from Northern Africa. So now you have a blend of Native American and Spanish roots that make up what we know of today as Curanderismo. There's a Judeo-Christian gift that it's a gift that from God and a belief of God. The curandero may say, it's not me doing the healing, but it's God doing the healing, and I'm only an instrument of God. There's a Greek humoral influence that there's a balance or an equilibrium of hot and cold. And if you had a cold illness, you use hot remedies, and vice versa. If you have a cold illness, you use hot remedies to try to bring the body into balance. There's an Arabic influence that directs psychic energy. For example, in mal de ojo, if you stare at someone, you can make that person sick, especially babies whose system is weak, and they can attract this psychic energy. And then there's an African influence, a blend of Santeria, Catholic saints with African orichas. It's found a lot in the Afro-Latino cultures of Cuba, Puerto Rico, where they blend those saints with African orichas. And there's the spiritualism and psychic influence. And we believe that this influence came from France. A Frenchman by the name of Allan Kardec wrote the first book on spiritualism in the mid-1800s. And my teacher, Chenchito, or Crescencio Alvarado, used to channel spirits, and he would go into a trance, and that's when he would do his healings. And then finally, there's a scientific influence. The curanderos and curanderas know germ theory. They know psychology and biomedicine. So they may even take your blood pressure. And they work closely with nurses and physicians. We like to think that we're beginning to see a fusion of traditional and allopathic or modern medicine. And that's because of a physician by the name of Andrew Weil. And Curanderismo has influenced what we used to call alternative medicine. Now we call it integrated medicine, but also we call it contemporary or complementary medicine and holistic medicine. And we spend $21 billion in this kind of medicine. That's a lot of money. And here's Andrew Weil, a physician who got his medical doctor's degree from Harvard University. And he now lives in Arizona, and he is the director of the Center for Integrated Medicine at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. And Dr. Weil says that we can use a common sense approach to healing. He says, if traditional medicine approaches can hurt you, it could help you. So why not do that? He also says, eat less animal fat, animal food, try to control your stress, eliminate or reduce the intake of booze, stop smoking. Nicotine is bad for you. Coffee, drink it in moderations. And so Dr. Andrew Weil has been quite popular worldwide. I met him a few years ago. He was a commencement speaker at the University of New Mexico, a very gentle, kind, and intelligent man. I was very impressed with him. And he uses a modern integrative approach to medicine, emphasizes holistic common sense approach to medicine. And here's Don Pedrito Jaramillo next to him. He was a traditional 19th century Mexican folk healer. He died in 1907, but he practiced a lot in the late 1800s. And he was a traditional 19th century Mexican folk healer. Both Dr. Weil and Don Pedrito Jaramillo emphasize a holistic common sense approach to treatment and healing. So you've got Dr. Weil, Andrew Weil, Harvard medical doctor, and you have Don Pedrito Jaramillo, who was illiterate. He couldn't read or write, and yet they were saying the same things in different times in our history. Here's a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, Laurencio Núñez. He's from Oaxaca, Mexico. And Mario went to see him last year. Mario, are you with us still, Mario? We may have lost Mario, but Mario went to see Laurencio. And I've spent a lot of time with Laurencio. We've taken classes to Oaxaca. Laurencio has been our guide. He's done a lot of Limpias, or energetic spiritual cleansings. He specializes in that, but he also is very good at herbology. He knows a lot of medicinal plants, and he comes to my class every summer. So if we go live this coming summer, Laurencio will be with us, and you'll be able to meet the famous Laurencio Núñez. He will do we have a snippet, a short, very short video on a limpia he does on me. It's an energetic or spiritual cleansing, or limpia. The belief system is that we go through traumatic experiences, and our energy is affected, it's damaged. Call it energy, call it spirit. And sometimes people believe that we've lost our spirit and we can bring it back to our body. And this is what Laurencio will be doing in just a minute. And he uses 5 elements. He's not going to use all 5 elements here because we don't have time. It's just a sample video, but he will use an egg, and he will use herbs, and he will use, I don't think he'll use copal, but he will, if he had more time, he would use copal, which is an incense, water or mezcal, and a candle to absorb and sweep away negative vibrations that are in our body. So let's see if we can see this snippet. Can you hear, Gabby?
I don't hear anything on my end.
Can you folks, if you can hear this?
I don't hear it, Cheo, and I think that's because maybe you forgot to check the.
Well, Gabby is controlling it there. Tell Gabby what to do, Mario, if you don't mind. Let me stop it, and you can tell Gabby.
Okay.
I think, Cheo, if you hit stop screen sharing for a moment.
Okay, I'll stop the screen, okay?
And then hit it again. But then when you're selecting it, it should give you the option.
Yeah, here it goes. Share sound. Okay, I got it. Okay. All right. Let's try it again.
Right now.
Can you hear now?
How we'll do a cleansing.
Good.
Ayúdanos, Gran Padre Celestial, a llevar a cabo esta ceremonia de limpia en el cuerpo, en el pensamiento, en el espíritu y en el corazón de tu hijo Cheo.
And Mario, you can hear?
Allow me to bring cleansing to this body, to this spirit, this mind.
Yes.
Dios del cielo y de la tierra.
From the heavens and the earth.
Ayúdanos, Gran Señor.
Help me, great Father,
estas plantas,
with these great plants,
fruto de la madre tierra,
to help Mother Nature, that we cleanse,
para poder limpiar
so that I can cleanse
este cuerpo,
this body,
este pensamiento,
those thoughts,
este espíritu,
that spirit,
este corazón,
and this heart
de tu hijo Eliseo.
of your son,
Ayúdame,
Eliseo.
Gran Padre,
Help him
a sacar todas esas malas vibraciones,
to take out any bad
esas malas
vibrations,
energías que se cierran en su cuerpo.
those energies that feel that they could stay in his
Cuídalo y
body.
protégelo.
Help him and protect
Yo te
him.
lo pido, yo te lo ruego, gran Señor.
I ask you, great Father, to protect him.
Ven, ven,
Come,
ven,
come,
ven, ven,
come, come.
ven. Espíritu divino,
Divine Spirit,
regresa a tu cuerpo.
return to your body.
Ven, ven,
Come,
ven.
come.
Espíritu de Cheo,
Great Spirit of Cheo,
regresa a tu cuerpo.
return to your
Ven,
body.
ven,
Come,
ven.
come.
Cheo, regresa a tu cuerpo.
Cheo, return to
Ven,
your body.
ven. Cheo,
Come,
regresa
come,
a tu
Cheo,
cuerpo.
return to your
Ven,
body.
yo te llamo.
I am
Yo te
calling
pido
you,
que regreses.
and I am asking
Estés
you,
donde estés.
so that you are where you
Ven.
are. Come,
Haz uno solo.
come, you alone,
En cuerpo,
in your body,
en pensamiento,
in thought,
en espíritu
and in your spirit,
y en corazón.
and within your heart.
Ayúdanos, gran Padre,
Help us, great
para
Father,
que estas plantas
for these plants,
absorban
that
las
they
malas
absorb
energías,
anything
las malas
that's bad
vibraciones de este ser.
energy or vibrations in his body.
Ven, ven,
Come,
ven.
come,
Espíritu de Cheo,
Spirit of Cheo,
regresa.
return,
Ven,
come,
Espíritu de Cheo,
return,
ven
the
a tu
Spirit of Cheo.
cuerpo.
Let me cleanse this body.
Intégrate a él.
I'm giving these plants
Dale el
energy to you,
equilibrio.
so that you can have
Dale la
balance
paz.
and peace
Dale la armonía.
and of harmony
Dale la felicidad
and of the
que
happiness,
este ser está buscando.
everything that you're looking
Que así
for.
sea. gran
That's the
Padre
way it
mío.
is, and that's the way it'll be.
Ayúdanos, gran
Help
Padre
us.
Celestial,
Great
para
Father,
que este hierro,
So that
fruto de
this
la Madre Tierra y del
egg,
viento,
with the strength of the Mother Earth,
sea el elemento
be
para
an
poder
element
limpiar el
that can
cuerpo,
guide us and help the body
el pensamiento,
in their thoughts,
el espíritu
is the
y
spirit
el corazón de tu Hijo Cheo.
of the heart of your son,
Ayúdalo,
Cheo.
gran Padre.
Help us, great
No
Father,
lo desampares.
all of our parents.
Cuídalo y protégelo.
Take care of him and protect him,
Que este huevo
that this egg
absorba
absorb
las malas energías,
any bad
las
energies,
malas vibraciones,
any bad
las
vibrations,
tristezas.
any sadness.
Vamos a
This is just a snippet. If Laurencio had more time, he would use copal incense. It's an incense that comes from the copal tree. It's a wonderfully fragrance incense. He would spray me with water or mezcal. Mezcal is an alcoholic drink that comes from the maguey plant. And then he would give me a candle and ask me to burn it at night to burn anything that's left over, any bad energy. And the idea, remember, he would say, with the spirit of Cheo return to his body, the idea is that I've left, some of my spirit has left me if I had a traumatic experience. And that's why I get sick. During COVID time, a lot of people feel that they're going through a lot of stress, that they've lost part of their soul, part of their spirit, or part of their energy. Forget about soul. What if we are composed of energy? So if you're thinking of energy, our energy has been damaged, and he's smoothing our energy and bringing it back to being normal through the Limpias or the energetic cleansings. These cleansings are found in many, many cultures around the world. Let's move now to Leticia. Leticia is an herbalist. She's a curandera from Mexico also, but she's an excellent herbalist. And she's going to talk about herbs for the nervous system. During COVID times, we're all getting nervous. We're getting stressed. We're indoors a lot. We have disagreements with some of our family members and friends because we're just together a lot. Or we're nervous. Or we had COVID and we didn't know whether we were going to survive or not. And we were really stressed. Well, she's going to talk about plans for the nervous system, and then she's going to show us how to do a facial massage to calm our nerves. It'll be brief. And so now I'll give you Leticia, Leti from Mexico. And translating is Tonita Gonzalez, who is a healer from Albuquerque, who spent a lot of time in Mexico, and she got her certificate at the school that I mentioned earlier, SEDEC. So let's,
Esta planta que con su aroma
This plant with its aroma
va a tranquilizar mi sistema nervioso.
helps to tranquilize our nervous system.
Va a servir para cuando se siente uno muy nervioso o tiene ansiedad.
It helps when somebody feels really nervous or has a lot of anxiety.
Simplemente con tener un ramito cerca
You could always just have just a stem
y
close to
percibir
you.
el aroma,
Perceive the aroma,
yo me voy a tranquilizar.
and I naturally become more tranquil.
Otra planta tranquilizante
Another tranquilizing plant
es la hermosa rosa,
is a beautiful rose.
¿sí? Aparte de observar su belleza,
But apart from looking at its beauty,
su aroma también va a relajar a
The-
mi cuerpo.
aroma as well helps to relax the body.
Una planta sumamente importante
One plant that is very
y que
important for
tienen
us,
aquí, pero a mares,
you guys have a lot of this here.
es el maravilloso romero.
It's the beautiful rosemary.
Esta plantita es un hepatoprotector,
This is a blood protector.
hepatoregenerador
It also helps regenerate,
y es una planta estimulante,
but it's also a stimulant.
que aparte de su aroma,
And apart from its aroma,
yo puedo diariamente
I could daily,
comer una hojita,
I could eat one leaf.
¿sí? Y esto va a mantener a mi cerebro
And this would help maintain my brain
despejado,
so that it becomes, there's
¿sí?
fluidity.
Va a ser excelente cuando hay problema de ansiedad
It's really excellent when people
o
have
de depresión.
problems of anxiety or depression.
En una depresión estamos como que ya no tenemos aliento, no tenemos deseo de seguir viviendo.
When somebody has depression, they lack their breath and they no longer have the desire to go forward.
Nuestra energía está bajando demasiado.
And their energy has become very weak.
Entonces esta plantita es estimulante y me va a ayudar a recuperar esa energía.
And so this plant is a stimulant and it helps recuperate your energy.
well, let's move to another presentation.
Tenemos, por ejemplo, la lavanda,
For example, we have here lavender.
esta planta que con su aroma
This plant with
Let me
its,
see if we have another part of
una
Leticia's.
muestra,
I'm going to give you a demonstration right
de
now
un masajito facial,
of a facial massage.
que en este caso lo voy a hacer a un compañerito que me va a hacer favor
He's going to help us today.
de permitirme tocar
Right in
su
front of him.
rostro.
So he's going to permit me to touch his face.
Pero este masaje lo vamos a poder hacer uno mismo.
I'm going to show you how to do this, but I want you to know this is something you could do to yourself.
Si en la noche al acostarte no puedes conciliar el sueño,
If you sleep at night and you realize that you're not able to go to sleep,
puedes darte este masaje maravilloso
you could give this marvelous self-massage,
y vas a complementar
and you're going to complement it
también
with,
dando un masaje en las muñecas,
but also giving your own massage in your wrists of your hands.
¿sí? Con este masaje estamos tranquilizando corazón
With this little massage, you're actually making your heart more tranquil,
y estamos tranquilizando también pulmón.
but you're also tranquilizing your lungs.
Va a ser la mejor medicina natural
It would be the best
para poder
natural
conciliar
medicine
el sueño,
so that you could then sleep.
¿sí? Y también tenemos esta hermosa planta que en cuestión de insomnio, la dejé al último para esto,
This is why I left this plant as the last, because
Es
this is
el-
also excellent for insomnia.
albahaca,
This is basil.
¿sí? También nos podemos tomar un tecito con una hojita
You could
de
take
albahaca
a tea using just one
Para-
leaf in a cup of tea,
para una taza de té
one leaf per cup,
y tomarla antes de acostarnos a dormir.
and you could take it right before you go to bed.
Y ahora sí,
And now,
felices sueños.
have good dreams.
¿Sí? Para este masajito voy a utilizar un poco de aceitito.
I'm going to use a little bit of massage oil,
Es una cosa mínima, una
just very, very
gotita,
little, just a drop.
¿sí? Que tiene aroma de lavanda precisamente.
And this has the aroma of lavender.
Que desde que lo estoy inhalando
And as you're inhaling,
está tranquilizando mi sistema nervioso.
you've already started to begin to tranquilize
Tallo
your
un
nervous
poquito
system.
mis manos para provocar calor.
You're going to rub your hands together so that you could provoke warmth in your hands.
Deposito mis manos
I
a una
deposit
corta distancia
my
primero,
hands just as a distance from the eyes,
en el rostro
on the face,
de la persona que voy a masajear.
to the person that I'm going to massage.
Y después voy a iniciar
And I'm
por
going
su frente.
to initiate
¿Sí?
on the front.
Voy a hacer este movimiento
I'm going to do this
para
movement
estimular
to stimulate,
la energía de este rostro.
to move
de
the
este
energy within this
cuerpo.
face and this body.
Unos pequeños
Little,
pellizcos
little pinches
en
above the
cejas.
eye, on the eyebrows.
Desde luego que estos movimientos los voy a hacer
And these movements I'm going to do
unos 3 minutos en cada punto.
for about 3 minutes in each point.
En las laterales del rostro,
On the lateral sides of the face,
en los ojos, pero muy suavemente.
but very softly
Sí,
you'll do that
muy
on
suave.
top of the eyelids.
Este masajito debe de ser rico,
This needs
delicioso.
to feel rich and delicious.
De la base de la nariz
On the base of the nose
al pómulo,
to the cheekbones,
¿sí? Nos vamos continuando
and we continue
con cada punto del
With
rostro.
every point on the face.
En este caso, donde terminan los labios,
In this case, where the
en la
lips
comisura de
end,
la boca,
and to the top of the mouth,
me voy al abajo de la barbilla,
I go underneath the lip, on the chin.
suavemente recorro
Very softly, I'm running my hands.
¿sí? Después de ahí me sigo con las orejitas,
After, I'll finish with the ears.
estimulando, estimulando. En todas estas partes de mi cuerpo tengo terminaciones nerviosas de mis órganos.
Specifically on the ears, you have points that connect directly to your nervous system. So if I stimulate these points, then I'm relaxing the nervous system.
Aquí estoy estimulando a todo mi organismo.
But I'm also stimulating all of the organs within the body.
Aquí doy un pequeño jaloncito
Here I'm going to pull a little bit,
hacia arriba,
up,
hacia atrás
down,
y hacia abajo.
up, back, and
¿Sí?
down. I will
Termino
pull
con
it.
cuello,
I finish with the neck,
y saco.
and I remove.
Me sigo con cabecita porque si no lo dejaría yo incompleto.
And then I'll finish with the head because I don't want to leave an completed job.
Un pequeño shampoo
I do a little shampoo,
y después
stimulation, and after,
me voy con mis dedos pulgares
I go with my thumbs,
apretando.
pressing.
No se preocupen,
Do not worry.
el cráneo es duro.
The cranium is hard.
No va a pasar absolutamente nada si yo oprimo.
Absolutely nothing will happen if I press with a little
Los
pressure.
laterales,
On the lateral side of the head,
y también vuelvo a sacar.
and then I go and I remove, sweeping the head.
Tallo de nuevo mis manos
I start to rub my hands,
y termino pasando energía del universo.
and I continue by giving energy to from the universe to the head.
Ok.
Thank you.
¿Cómo te sientes?
How do you feel?
Very relaxed. Thank you.
Muy relajada, gracias.
Ok. Bueno, pues espero que sea.
Well, that ends this a part of the demonstration by Leticia. Leticia has come to the summer class quite a number of times, as she's an excellent healer. We work with about 30 healers from Mexico. Most of them teach at the school that I mentioned earlier in Cuernavaca, Mexico. They're excellent healers. And they train our people here to become your own healer. We tell students, you can be your own healer. You don't need a curandera. You can do your own healing. So here's a few of the plants that may or may not have been mentioned by Leticia. This is manzanilla or chamomile. Oh, I grew up with chamomile. My mother just grew chamomile or manzanilla. all over our yard, and it's anti-inflammatory for anxiety, fever, headaches, insomnia. If you can't sleep, nausea, it's a great sedative. Manzanilla or chamomile is popular all over the world. I found it very popular in Germany, believe it or not, as much as in Mexico. Damiana, they also call it Damiana de California. California has some great Damiana for anxiety, colic, and mild indigestion, because we do suffer from indigestion, many of us. And then lavender, of course, lavender, oops, here we go. Or alucema or lavanda in Spanish. It's a great sedative and also for indigestion. We have several lavender farms here. I love this plant, lavender. And then tila, linden flowers. A lot of our international students take a lot of tila or linden flowers for headaches, depression, as a sedative for headaches. And then uña de gato. Uña de gato, cat's claw. This is not the American cat's claw, which can be a bit toxic. This is a Peruvian cat's claw. And Uncaria tomentosa is a botanical name. It's a great anti-inflammatory, great cleanser for the kidneys, for viral infections, and an immunosuppressant, which is very important. If your immune system is strong, you're going to fight a lot of illnesses. And then passion flower. Passion flower, passiflora, is used a lot by the curanderos that we work with. It's a great sedative for anxiety, for headaches, and for insomnia if you can't sleep. It's just a wonderful, wonderful plant. Passion flower or passiflora. And then borage. I have gone to Egypt where it's borraja or borage is very popular. They call it burak, father of sweat. And it cools the body, purifies the body. For fevers, it's a great diuretic. During COVID, people suffer from fever, and a lot of the curanderos recommend borraja or borage. And then valeriana. If you really can't sleep, even if you try some of the other plants, this is one of the strongest plants. You don't even boil the root of valeriana for nervousness and for insomnia. Yeah, it is strong. And so what you do is you let it set for 24 hours or so in water, and then you drink the water. There is a side effect. For women, if you're pregnant, don't use it. They say that it could cause abortions. Now, we do offer 4 courses. I think I may mention this earlier, for free. This is not through the university, but this is through the Coursera platform. It's an international platform that offers these 4 courses year-round. And they do try to charge you a small fee for a certificate. If you don't want the certificate, just audit the course. And the first course is healing using plants. And we have plants for the digestive system, plants for the nervous system. You saw a snippet of plants for the nervous system from Leticia Leti. They show you how to prepare fresh plants or dry plants in a liquid, which is a microdosage, water-based, or a tincture, which is alcohol-based. How to prepare juices, juice therapy for preventing illnesses or for dealing with illnesses, and healing with herbal oils. The next class is healing of the body. And in this class, we have fire cupping. It's like Chinese cupping, but it's a wonderful technique. They show you how to do your fire cupping. Rita Navarrete from Mexico City does fire cupping. You've seen the Olympics, and you've seen people with bruises on their back. They had cupping, but they had Chinese cupping. Mexican cupping doesn't bruise you. It's a different type of cupping. And then my abdominal mind massage. We have a fellow from Kansas City, Missouri, who spent a lot of time in Belize, Central America, in the Mayan Merida area, which is populated by a large number of Mayan natives. And he learned Mayan abdominal massage. And so he'll teach you how to do that. Intestinal blockage or empacho, body and spinal alignments. We work with sobadores, sobadoras, hueseros, the original chiropractors, if you will. And then traditional healing for infants and the aging community. and also for pregnant women. These are sensitive individuals, infants. They can't talk, and they're babies. And the Asian community, their bones are brittle. You have to be sensitive to working with them. And then pregnant women are also sensitive, because if you don't do things correctly, you could cause an abortion. And then the next course is Global and Cultural Influences of Healing. We have worked with healers from Uganda, the men with the red bandanas from Uganda, and from Gabon, this man with the white bandana is from Gabon, Africa. And then Afro-Cuban, we've worked with a healer from Cuba. And then Puerto Rican healing, Native American feather healing, and Mayan acupuncture. Similar to Chinese acupuncture, but a bit different. And then the last course is Spiritual Energetic Limpias, or Energetic Cleansings. You got a sample from Laurencio from Oaxaca. We have like 5 different types of limpias that we have on video. And then we talk about the sweat lodges. Sweat lodges or temazcals are making a comeback in Mexico as well as in Albuquerque. We work with 3 sweat lodges, and during the class in the summer, in the evening, you have a chance to go to one of the 3 sweat lodges, and they're excellent. And they're very therapeutic. And then healing through sound and music and laugh therapy. At the end of this presentation, you'll get a sample of laugh therapy. I demonstrated laugh therapy at the TEDx talk. And Dia de los Muertos, healing grief. If you lost a loved one, sometimes we don't grieve. So we teach you how to grieve using Dia de los Muertos. So those are the 4 Coursera courses. And then Mario is working on the Coursera in Espanol. Mario, are you with us, Mario?
I'm here, Cheo, but my internet is very bad, and
I can hear you. Can you hear Mario, Gabby? Do you want to talk about the Coursera en Español?
I could try, Cheo, but the internet is not that good, and there's a lot of noise around. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I can hear you pretty well, and Gabby can hear you. I think our other folks can hear you. So maybe you can briefly tell them what you're doing with Coursera en Español.
Sure, pretty briefly. We are creating like an aligned version of these 4 courses, but in Spanish. It's not exactly the same. We have other videos. Some of the videos in Spanish are not available in English since they were recorded in Spanish as the first original version of these videos. Some of them, for example, we have with Mino from Peru, the sacred tobacco. We have, of course, the Dia de los Muertos in Mexico. We have Plants for Women by Bernadette Torres in Albuquerque. We have different kinds of spiritual energetic cleansings from Cuba, Puerto Rico, and of course, Mexico, like the one you saw with Laurencio. We talk about the Escuela de Medicina Tradicional in Cuernavaca, the CEDEC, Centro de Desarrollo hacia la Comunidad. Of course, we also offer an introduction to traditional medicine, and we also have a module on El Niño Fidencio and the Chenchito, which is or who was part of the Fidencista movement, and who also came to the University of New Mexico to give a lecture and demonstrations of Curanderismo to the students here in Albuquerque.
Well, thank you.
So Coursera en Español is not yet available, but it will be soon.
Very good. And Mario, you're right now at the Dallas airport on your way to Mexico, and you're going to be interviewing several herbalists at the mercados in Mexico, and who knows, that may be part of the course also. So, and Mario, you were in Oaxaca just this last year, weren't you, with Laurencio and other healers? Well, I think we lost Mario, but anyway, he's on his way to Mexico, and he works a lot with many of the healers in Mexico.
Yeah, I was there, Cheo, and I have some materials that are not.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah. Go ahead, Mario.
Not yet in the course, but they will be in Coursera.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mario, and have a safe travel.
Thank you.
Here we have some books that were written basically for the courses. The first one is called Curandero, Traditional Healers of Mexico in the Southwest. And we have biographies of all these wonderful curanderos who worked with both in the US and Mexico. And then Curanderismo, it's a series of chapters that coincide with those modules that you learn in Coursera or in the credit courses here at UNM. And then there's two optional books that we work with. Curandero is a series of stories that I relate. And these are published by UNM Press. And then Healing with Herbs and Rituals, a Mexican Tradition. And this has a list of about 130 medicinal plants, both from Mexico and the US, and some that go across borders. And the names are in Spanish and English, and the botanical or scientific name, and then the usage of these plants. And then it also talks about the ritual. So here's my contact, and we're recording this, so you'll have a copy of this, and if you need to get a hold of me, please do. Or Mario does a lot of work in Mexico, and he's a colleague of mine getting his doctor's degree here pretty soon. And we're almost ending the presentation, and we'll have a short TEDx talk that I did not too long ago. But we end with a phrase: the curanderismo it's not just a healing modality, but rather choosing a lifestyle of consciousness. And to be healthy, we need to understand that we have to be balanced physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It ties to the holistic approach to healing mind, body, and spirit. Well, now we're going to view this YouTube. Skip the ads.
I'm going to make a bold statement and say that doing a TEDx talk is going to be the most transformative and uplifting experience of your life and your business. This is Kevin before his TEDx talk. When I met him, he was 19 years old, had just dropped out of high school.
Well, my passion is curanderismo. I study, I research, I write about it, and I teach a course every summer on the topic. How many of you have been to the course? Some of you, I see some hands up. So you know what it is. Curanderismo comes from the word curar, which means to heal. A curandero is a male healer, a curandera, a female healer. And think about this. In earlier years, there were few medical doctors, there were few ministers, priests, no counselors. So the curandero played all these roles using a holistic approach to healing the body, mind, and spirit. Now, my mom was not a curandera, but she should have been one. She would tell us, all 6 of us children, she would say, "Don't you dare get sick." And if you do, I'll take care of your illness. And she did. Using medicinal plants, using rituals, she kept us healthy. I'll give you an example. She loved the aloe vera plant, sábila, and she would call it la plantita milagrosa, the miraculous plant. And she would say, this plant heals everything from pimples to wrinkles. Indeed, she used it on her wrinkles and on our pimples. But she also used it for burns and sunburns. And my dad had serious digestive problems, so she gave him papaya. Every day, she gave him papaya for breakfast. And she would ask us,
please take your papaya, eat your papaya. Of course, you know how kids are. We didn't eat papaya. Until recently, I was diagnosed with diverticulitis, and the physician said, you will need surgery. So immediately I got on the phone, I called Rita, my curandera friend from Mexico. I said, Rita, I'm having surgery. She said, no, you're not. She said, take papaya. 3 times a day if you have to. I said, that's what my mom used to say. And she said, did you listen to your mom? Mother always knows best. And then there were those wonderful rituals. For example, the ritual of the 7 knots in Spanish is called El Rito de los 7 Nudos. How many of you have problems? Come on, all of us have problems. And this ritual, and it's amazing how the curanderos use simple things to deal with serious illnesses. All you need is a ribbon, a red ribbon, about 1.5 foot in length, and you think of 7 problems. And if you think you don't have 7 problems, you do. You take the ribbon, you take the half of the ribbon, and you tie a knot for your first problem. And you think about your problem, and you can pray if you'd like. Move a couple of inches to the right, you tie your second knot for your second problem, and then you go to the left, and then to the right, and to the left, and to the right, until you get to the 7th knot for your 7th problem. So you've already tied a circle with 7 knots. You take the ribbon with the 7 knots, and you find an empty jar, like an empty peanut butter jar or a mason jar. You put your ribbon with your knots in the jar, you close it, go to the backyard. Be careful the neighbors aren't watching, they think you're digging money. So you dig a hole, you bury the jar with the ribbons, and therefore you get rid of your 7 problems. Isn't that interesting? Very simple. Now, this reminds me of another ritual. A friend of mine told me, he's a curandero, he said, when we were kids, my dad was an alcoholic, and he would come home and he would insult us, and he would curse at my mom, and we were miserable. But there were times that our dad would come home, and he would go to the backyard, and we would sneak behind him, and we would hide in the shrubs, and then he would lie on the ground, lie on his stomach, and he would take out his pocket knife, and he would dig a hole. And then he would curse at that hole, and he would yell obscenities at that hole, and then he would cover it. And then he would come home, and he would be as sweet as ever. What was he doing? What was it that? He was getting rid of all that anger, all that stress that's in a lot of us, all that garbage that sometimes we need to get rid of, in a very simple way. And then there was the ritual of susto, which means fright. Sociologists refer to susto as magical fright. Whenever you have a traumatic experience, an accident, maybe a fire, or maybe you've come back from a war, you may be suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I remember my cousin came back from Vietnam, and I'm sure he had PTSD, but I don't even think we had a label for it back then. And he would have flashbacks, he'd have migraines, he'd have suicidal thoughts. And my mother and my aunt said, he's got susto pasado. It's a serious susto. So what they did is they took plants, just not any plant. They took basil, they took rue, and rosemary, and they swept his body from head to toe 3 times in prayer. And I remember they would whisper, may the spirit of Juan return to his body 3 times a week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for a month. And they asked us to be part of the rituals. The neighbors would come and support. At the end of the month, my cousin was normal. Isn't it amazing how these wonderful things can cure a person? Now, my belief is that we can create a new healthcare model that will bring both traditional medicine and modern allopathic medicine together. In fact, I've seen this model work. very effectively in Mexico at a place called CEDEC, Centro de Desarrollo hacia la Comunidad, or a Human Development Center. It's really a school for curanderos, and hundreds, if not thousands of curanderos go through that school, and usually it's a certificate program that lasts about 3 years. I was there about 3 years ago, and I had a terrible pain. I had sciatica. I could hardly walk. And one of the curanderas, who's also a professor there, said, "Cheo, what's wrong with you?" I said, "Well, I have sciatica, and I've had it for years." She said, "Can I work on you?" I said, "Of course." So she said, "First, we're going to a temazcal, which is a Mexican sweat lodge." And we did for about an hour. And then she gave me an herbal tea. And then she said, "Take a nap." She wrapped me in a blanket. And I napped for about 30, 40 minutes. Afterwards, she worked on my leg. She massaged, she pulled, she stretched. And after about an hour and a half, she said, "Go to sleep." I slept like a baby. The next morning, not only was I walking, I was running. And I have been pain-free for 3 years, folks. It's just incredible. At this school, CEDEC, they teach curanderos that are actually the doctors of their villages things like healthy lifestyles, diets, juice therapy, acupressure, acupuncture. They make their own medicine with herbs. They make tinctures in alcohol base. They make microdoses with a water base. And they teach laugh therapy, risa terapia. Did you hear me? Laugh therapy. Now, Niño Fidencio, a famous curandero in the 1920s, was already doing laugh therapy. And now Rita, my friend Rita Navarrete, does laugh therapy. She teaches laugh therapy, even here at the University of New Mexico during the summers. Now, I think Rita has already realized that laugh activates endorphins, the natural body painkillers, and it suppresses epinephrine, the stress hormone. It also helps the immune system. It circulates the blood. It relieves anxiety. And I'd like to try an exercise with you that she taught me. Could you please stand, all of you, for a second? Now, I want you to go along with what I say, okay? Start by saying, he. Now, okay, now, he. Now, ha. Now, ho. Please sit down. Now, if any of you were experiencing pain, you will be pain-free for the next 30 to 40 minutes. Okay. I'm serious. Going back to the model, let's dream big and let's bring both forms of medicine. Now, we're beginning to do this at our own University of New Mexico Health Sciences Center, thanks to Dr. Arti Prasad, who has a Center for Life here. Yes. But this has to exist all over the country, in fact, all over the world. And I tell you, this is what we need to meet the needs of those that are uninsured, especially those 11 million immigrants that live here. The only time they go to the hospital is when they're really sick and they go to an emergency room, which is overcrowded and understaffed. So let's come up with a new model and stay healthy, eat papaya, and laugh a lot. Okay. Thank you.
Well, that ends the presentation. At this time, Gabby, I think we left some time for questions and answers, or if there's anything in the chat that you'd like to tell me about, I'd be glad to answer as much as I can, or any comments that you might have. You don't even have to have a question, but you may want to share something with us. And I think we could open it up and see if anybody has any questions to ask.
With that, I think I'll stop the recording. Just
okay. Sure.
so everyone
Okay.
feels comfortable.
Yes. Oh, that'd be a good idea. Yes. That way you